Hello, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to review the real estate market analysis for Los Gatos, California for April 2008. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I'm a California licensed real estate broker, a member of the National Association of Realtors, and a certified ePro. Let's go ahead and jump right in and take a look at the numbers for April of 2008. The first thing we'll do is take a look at the inventory numbers. What's interesting here is that we're starting to see a turnaround in the Los Gatos market. We've actually seen this for the last couple of months. Los Gatos is one of the last communities in Santa Clara County to react to the downturn in the market with a pretty prominent increase in inventory. And just like we saw with other parts of Santa Clara County, the first reaction to this change in the market is an increase in the inventory. Now, Santa Clara County for quite some time saw dramatic increases in inventory, but didn't see some of the other things that we've associated with this market, like reduced prices, those types of things. And we're going to see that trend is sort of playing out again here for the community of Los Gatos. Now, the inventory numbers, when we compare 2007 to 2008, now this is just the month of April, we can see that inventory is up 47.4% when compared to the same time last year. That gives us a total homes on market number of 168. Now, next, let's take a look at the number of new listings that were added in the month of April. And remember, these are just homes that were listed during the month. So it's an indication of how many folks out there have decided to try and sell their home during the month of April. Now, we saw an 11.5% increase in the number of homes that were listed in April of 2008 when compared to the same time frame in 2007, and that gave us a total of homes listed of 68. So it's not a huge increase, but it's an increase. We would expect to see an increase during this time of year, but since we're only comparing to the same time of year in past years, it could be significant. Now, you'll notice that back in 2001, between 2000 and 2001, we saw a similar type of big jump in folks entering we saw a much bigger jump actually in folks entering the market, and we also saw a similar increase in inventory. So, as I've suggested with the county in general, it might not be a bad idea to look back to 2001 to see overall how the market in general reacted and what the results of those market changes were. But we'll take a look at that a little bit more as we move through the rest of this. Now, next, let's take a look at the number of homes that have sold. This is also down substantially from last year, another indication that the market is starting to hit Los Gatos as far as what's negatively affected the county. And again, this is the same thing we saw in Santa Clara County in general. We saw an increase in inventory, a drop in sales without a lot of impact on the average sales price of homes. Now, from the same time last year, sales are actually down 46.3% for a grand total of 22 homes sold in the month of April in Los Gatos. Now, if we do the quick math, that gives us about 7.6 months worth of inventory. Now, county-wide, that's not so bad. It basically means that for every home that sells, there's about 7 other homes on the market trying to get sold. What is interesting and significant about this number is it's almost twice what it was last month. Last month, it was around 3.4, 3.5. This month, well over 7. And for me, anything under 5 or 6 is relatively healthy. So we've definitely crossed over into the ratio of homes that are sold versus homes that are on the inventory. That's an unhealthy number. How far that will go, how far the market will continue to dip in Los Gatos is anyone's guess. It'll be interesting to see next month's numbers and see what sort of trends we see. But for right now, we've seen a substantial drop in the number of sales in Los Gatos from when compared to the same time last year. Now let's go ahead and look at the same numbers when compared just to the previous month. So we're going all the way back to February of 2007. And what we like to do here is when we're looking at numbers of this type, take a look at, for instance, now the month of April, compare it to the month of March of 2008, see what sort of changes we've seen. Take a look at the same time frame last year. So are we seeing similar changes? Last year, between March and April, we did see an increase in solds, for instance, but it was a much bigger increase in sales, which we would expect. April is really considered when we're starting to hit the market for the summer season, when things are starting to change. But notice we didn't get as much of an increase between March and April of 2008 as we did between March and April of 2007. Now, on average, I think we saw about the same increase in inventory. We're obviously already way up at higher numbers, but between March and April, we saw on par increases, which would be normal for the time of year. What's interesting to note is that in March and April, while the number of homes added to the market was relatively flat, with a slight increase in April, and we would have expected that. But between March and April of 2008, we actually saw a drop in the number of homes entering the market. This could be explained in a lot of different ways, but probably it's that sellers are seeing it as a weak market and maybe making the decision that now isn't the time to sell their home. This is actually a good thing. With other markets, we have seen this number continue to increase as folks try to list their homes and get them sold to try and get out before the market drops. If this is any kind of an indication of a trend, which we can't conclude that because it's simply 1 month's worth of data, but if it continues and we don't see a huge number of folks entering the market in Los Gatos, that would go a long way towards mitigating the inventory number. In other words, it would help to keep the number of homes in inventory down, which would tend to keep the market overall in Los Gatos more healthy. Now, between March and April of 2008, inventory increased 11.3%. The number of homes that listed was down 8.1%, and the number of homes that sold was up 15.8%. Now let's take a look at home prices. Again, this is mirroring the type of things we saw when the market started to turn county-wide, where average home price does not seem to be affected by the fact that inventory is up and sales are down. Now, the average home price when compared to 2007 for April is actually up 5.7%, which gives us an average home price for April of $1,908,745. So an exceptionally high average price. The median price was $1,565,000. Now, the highest priced single-family residence home sold in Los Gatos in April of 2008 was on Shannon Road. It sold for $7,700,000 and was listed for $7,900,000. So not a substantial decrease from asking price, but what's more interesting is that the home was only on the market for 8 days. That's sort of a testament to what we've seen, in that all the various levels of home, meaning price levels, are selling if they're priced correctly within their price range. So it's not that only the high end is suffering or only the middle end is suffering. The amount of suffering seems to be spread evenly across all price points. So that's at least the burden of the market is shared by all. But right now, as far as average sales price goes, there really is no burden in Los Gatos. Prices are still up. Now, the lowest priced home in Los Gatos was on Union Avenue, and that sold for $656,900. It was listed for $654,900. So it actually sold for $2,000 over asking price. Interesting here, though, is that it took 126 days for this home to ultimately sell. What's interesting about that is when you see homes that have been on the market for a very long time, selling at more than asking price, that's usually an indication that we're starting to see a recovery. But there's really nothing to recover from. Los Gatos has been a very robust market for a while. So this is kind of an interesting number, but sort of out of place given the kind of performance that Los Gatos has been enjoying for the last couple of years. Now, the average price per square foot for homes that have sold in the month of April 2008 for Los Gatos was $716.11. Now, if we compare that just to the active homes, and now there's no graph data representing this, but if we're looking now at active homes, so these are homes that are on the market but haven't sold, the average price per square foot of homes that are actively for sale is $800.82. The average asking price, and this is a very interesting number, this is the average asking price for active homes, is $2,906,940. Almost exactly $1 million over the average sales price of the homes. So what's interesting about that is it tends to indicate that the number of homes that are on the market right now are tending to group above the average sales price by a pretty significant amount. So it might indicate a little bit greater competition at the higher end. Those homes might be staying on the market longer, or it might just be an indication that we'll see continuing increases in the average sales prices of homes in the coming months. And of course, I'll report all of that to you as the data becomes available. Now let's go ahead and look at home prices over the past months. This goes back to February of 2007, and what we want to look again for is the trends. What are the trends that are happening now? Do we conform to the trends that we saw last year? And we tend to. Last year, if you're looking just at the average home price, which is the gray bar, you can see that between March and April of 2007, we saw an increase. We saw a relatively substantial increase actually last year, much more substantial than we saw this year. But what's really interesting is that if we want to now try and project forward a little bit, notice how the average price of homes actually went down in May and June and then started to recover a little bit more in July and August. Now, in the rest of the county, we didn't see as much of an increase in July and August as we see here in Los Gatos. In a more normal market, you'd see an increase starting in April, and then it would sort of continue and be a little bit more stable during the summer months. But we didn't see that last year. Because we've seen less increase or good numbers that just don't increase at a rate that's as good as last year, I'm going to kind of project that we're going to see things a little more flat this particular summer. We may see maybe a bigger dip in average sales price during the coming few months, and then maybe another bump in July and August, but perhaps not as pronounced as last year. So I would suggest we'll probably still see positive numbers for Los Gatos as far as sales price is concerned, but just not increasing at a rate that we've seen in previous years. Now, if we just want to look at the amount of price change between March and April of 2008, that's an increase of 9.6%, with a median price change of 11.8% between March and April. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at how long it's taking folks to get homes sold. Again, these are numbers that are sort of going against some of the other data we've seen with increased inventory and lower sales. We're not seeing an increase in the number of days it's taking to get a home sold. Now, in terms of just specific days, it's taking 5 days less to sell a home in April of 2008 than it took to sell a home in April of 2007. As you can see from the graph, in 2007, in April, it was taking 63 days to get a home sold. Now, in the same month in 2008, it's taking 58 days. That's a 7.9% increase. Now, if we look at all of the homes that sold, the lowest days on market was 3 days, and the highest days on market was 251 days. Now, unlike previous months, which we'll see on the next slide, the distribution, there were no unusually high days on market on this particular month. Now, if we just want to talk about averages for active homes to compare this to the whole market of Los Gatos, not just the homes that have sold, but actually all the homes that are actively on the market, the average days on market is 135. So well over twice the number of days of the homes that are actually selling. So that's an indicator that we've got some homes that have been hanging out there for a long time that may need some sort of attention as far as price adjustments or feature adjustments to get them sold. But if we go ahead and now take a look at the days to sell over past months, we can see what I was referring to in the last slide, where in this particular month, it was a pretty even distribution of days on market for the various homes that sold. But back in February, we saw a lot of homes that had been on the market for a particularly long time, which gave us sort of an artificially increased days on market average for February. And we pointed that out just so that no one would freak out about it. When you compensate for those types of things, we've actually seen fairly regular performance of average days on market. Nothing crazy, not a lot of fluctuation. And I think that's actually something that should be comforting for folks that are in the market for selling their home in Los Gatos. The market seems to be doing well despite the fact that we've seen increased inventory and decreasing sales. Now, the days to sell between March and April increased by 11.5%, and that was a grand total increase of 6 days. And as far as what we should expect in the coming months, it's really hard to tell. I would suggest that the increases will be more mild and decreases because of the reaction we've seen at least last month on the part of sellers in the market by not adding more properties to the marketplace. We may see that mitigate. I'm not convinced we will. I think we'll probably see more increased inventory numbers next month, but perhaps not as dramatic an increase as we saw in other communities within Santa Clara County. So in general, I think that Los Gatos is probably going to be a community that's going to get a little bit of a season this year for the summer. A lot of communities are not going to get a season in my opinion, but I don't think Los Gatos is going to be one of them. Now, there are a variety of ways to get in touch with me. If you'd like to read any of my other articles I've written, take a look at the other videos that I've created on different markets and different parts of my area that I serve, you can find those at my website at www.soldbyrobert.com. You can also find my weekly podcast there. If you'd like to email me, you can contact me at robert@soldbyrobert.com. Or if you'd like to call me directly, please feel free to do so at 408-852-0525. And finally, if you use AOL Instant Messenger, Google Talk, or Yahoo Instant Messenger, you can just use my screen name, The Rebel Broker, and you can contact me that way. I always appreciate referrals. If you or anyone you know is interested in real estate in Santa Clara County, please feel free to get in touch with me with any of the ways I've mentioned here. Thanks again, and I look forward to talking to you all next month.